Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Milan Sharavinsky. Across Ukraine, more than 20 people have been reported injured and one child was killed following the latest wave of Russian airstrikes. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy addressed the families of the victim, calling last night's attack by Moscow cynical and calculated.
At many critical infrastructure sites, recovery efforts continue following Russia's strike on the energy sector. It was a cynical and calculated attack with more than 450 drones and over 30 missiles targeting everything that sustains normal life, everything the Russians want to deprive us of. As of now, more than 20 people across the country have been reported injured. All are receiving the necessary assistance. Sadly, a child was killed in Zaporizhia as a result of the attack. My sincere condolences to the family and loved ones.
Russia's assault on Ukrainian civilians continued overnight, with numerous missiles targeting the city of Kyiv. Piotr Kaszuwara, president of the Ukraine Future Foundation, was in the Ukrainian capital during the strike and shared his first-hand experience with TVP World.
You know, it was another heavy night, I would say, in Kyiv. Unfortunately, the capital of Ukraine was attacked again. Russians attacked also critical infrastructure, the power plant in the city center. I am living very nearby to the city center, and about 2 o'clock, 1:30 Ukrainian time, I was woken up by the massive explosion. I just took my phone and checked in the Ukrainian channels what is going on, and I noticed that the Shahed drones are attacking the city, but obviously we didn't have too many informations. The attack was going on for a whole night, and in the morning we received the information that also the ballistic rockets are heading Kyiv, and from that what we know for now, because the attack just finished like 2 hours ago, 1 hour and a half actually. We know that a huge apartment building was attacked. It has 17 floors, about 12 people is wounded. We do not have any information for now that someone got killed in Kyiv, but we know that the power plant is damaged because half of the city has no power.
Hundreds of people took part in an evacuation exercise in Vilnius, Lithuania, this week. Amid concerns over Russia's extensive military spending since its 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia are drawing up contingency plans to deal with the possibility of hundreds of thousands of people fleeing a Russian troop buildup or attack. The role-play involved the evacuation of people from the Lithuanian capital Vilnius, but officials say contingency planning, still largely under wraps, was being made for much larger numbers. Vilnius, whose 700,000 residents live as close as 20 kilometers to the border with Belarus, a close ally of Russia, falls within the evacuation range. Assembly points in Vilnius and elsewhere have been selected. Trains and buses have also been assigned for potential evacuation. Basic supplies, such as toilet paper and camp beds, have been stockpiled in warehouses. Vehicles with evacuees will be directed to designated secondary roads to clear others for the incoming army units. Estonia is preparing plans to rehouse a tenth of its 1.4 million population in makeshift shelters, with many others seen as likely to move in with their relatives. Venezuelan oppositionist Maria Corina Machado has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela. Machado became one of Venezuela's key opposition figures after the death of Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez in 2013, when she and fellow opposition members refused to recognize the victory of his protege, Nicolas Maduro. Maduro has remained in power ever since and has recently entered his third term as the country's president, despite ample evidence that it was his opponent who won at the polls.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 goes to a brave and committed champion of peace, to a woman who keeps the flame of democracy burning amidst a growing darkness. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado. She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. As the leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado is one of the most extraordinary examples of civilian courage in Latin America in recent times. This is precisely what lies at the heart of democracy: our shared willingness to defend the principles of popular rule, even though we disagree. At a time when democracy is under threat, it is more important than ever to defend this common ground.
European Union finance ministers are meeting in Luxembourg on Friday to discuss the major challenges to using frozen Russian assets to provide Ukraine with a €140 billion loan. While the dialogue is not expected to substantially shift the dial, many see this as an opportunity to try and convince certain countries that a reparations loan would be the best way to support Ukraine against Russian aggression.
How can leaders from across the European Union be convinced that a reparations loan for Ukraine will significantly improve the situation on the battlefield against Russia? This is the major question at a Finance Affairs Council meeting in Luxembourg on Friday. We know that most of the opposition to this plan, spearheaded by the European Commission, lies with Belgium, with that country hosting Euroclear, the finance institution that hosts the lion's share of roughly €200 billion in frozen Russian state assets. Now, that country's Prime Minister, Bart de Wever, has previously stated that he needs written guarantees from his 26 allies that they will share the burden if things fall afoul. The major question here is whether this proposal is legally sound. At its core, the European Commission wants to use the cash proceeds from these frozen Russian state assets to issue a loan to the European Commission, which would then pass this on to Ukraine. We know that the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, is in support of this initiative. It is now up to her Finance Minister, Stephanie Lose, in Luxembourg to convince the naysayers.
It's a new way of approaching things, so there's a lot of practical issues where member states need to understand how will this work in details and not only in headlines. Of course, it's a lot of money and it's a very important topic, so we need to make sure that everyone knows the details and practicalities of this.
The Danish finance minister speaking there on the practicality of the proposals, which is still in its early days, needs to be hammered out. But what we're hearing from the International Monetary Fund is that Ukraine needs at least €52 billion from 2026 to 2027 to withstand Russian aggression. This doesn't even account for the reconstruction costs required if a ceasefire were to occur. But we know that the European Commission is putting at the centre of this proposal the need for this money to be spent in Europe, so weapons could be produced and procured here, sent to the Ukrainian front lines with that money released in tranches. But we don't know whether this will even cover the reconstruction costs, so what happens if a ceasefire is brokered with Russia. This matter will be formally tabled at the upcoming European Council summit in the next couple of weeks, where we're waiting to see whether that Belgian Prime Minister in particular can be convinced whether this is a good idea and whether this will support Ukraine on the front lines against another year of brutal Russian aggression. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
Sweden's defense minister announced on Friday that the country will invest approximately 320 million euros in additional anti-drone systems. The announcement comes after a series of overnight sightings of unidentified drones over Danish and Norwegian civilian airports and military infrastructure late last month. Earlier in September, Poland, Romania and Estonia had their airspace violated by Russian drones and fighter jets. It was believed by experts to have been Moscow's testing of European defences. The Swedish government said that the new investments will include the purchase of weapons, sensors and jammers to protect the country against hostile drones. The delivery of the new equipment has been brought forward from 2036 to 2028. Hungary's reported infiltration of EU institutions in Brussels by intelligence officers disguised as diplomats was uniquely aggressive and amateurish, according to Daniel Hegedus, Regional Director of Transatlantic Trust Central Europe at the German Marshall Fund. Hegedus told TVP World that the alleged near-decade-long spy operation, which was revealed on Thursday, coincided with a steady deterioration in relations between Budapest and Brussels.
What is really unique in this case is, I think, twofold. First, that these allegations and details of Hungarian intelligence activities are surfacing and they will be officially investigated. And the second, that at least based on the information disseminated through the media reporting, how aggressively, but also in what an amateurish way the Hungarian Foreign Intelligence Service operated between 2015 and 2017 in Brussels, that ultimately in 2017 led to the deconspiration of the Hungarian human intelligence network in the EU institutions.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching and please stay with us here on TVP World.